$20.6 million covers the cost of a complete Formula One car, and the power unit alone accounts for over $18 million of that.
And this is why they try to fix them as much as they possibly can, because that's $20 million for this. Just one. $20 million. Oh, yeah. Get to fixing that shit, y'all. What's good, y'all? It's your boy Ross, back at it again with another video. So we're going to check out how F1 mechanics rebuild a car after a 200-mile-per-hour crash. Now, I'm very interested to see how this all, goes about when it comes to mechanics rebuilding these vehicles, because they're hitting either each other or the walls or whatever they end up crashing into at very high speed. So the fact that they're able to rebuild these, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't take as long as you would think for like a regular car. If you're taking it to a dealership after accidents or a collision repair shop after an accident, it usually takes a little bit longer. But granted, they have multiple vehicles in their fleet, each team, but to be able to still fix something that crashed into something at like 200 miles an hour in relatively quick time, I'm guessing or assuming, is actually pretty impressive. So we're gonna see how the process goes and see what goes into it. Appreciate all love, support, and let's get right into this video, man.
Hit a barrier at 67G and walked out of a fireball, while Zhou Guanyu slid upside down for several hundred meters with nothing but a titanium ring protecting his skull. These crashes look like the end, but for Formula One mechanics, they mark the beginning of a very long night. Rebuilding a car that has been turned into carbon fiber confetti takes a specific kind of organized chaos, and the cost cap has forced teams to make brutal decisions about whose crashes they can actually afford. Stay to the end, because the financial side of this gets wild.
The
carbon fiber monocoque sits at the heart of every modern Formula One car. This survival cell weighs about 35 kilograms, and it handles forces that exceed 50 G. Two thin carbon composite skins, bonded to an aluminum honeycomb core, form the structure. Kevlar and Xylon panels reinforce the cockpit sides. The strength-to-weight ratio is staggering, coming in at twice as strong as steel, yet 5 times lighter. Everything attached to that survival cell serves a different purpose, and that purpose is controlled destruction. Nose cones crush like accordions during impact, wings detach cleanly from their mounts, and suspension components get pulverized into fragments. Carbon fiber dust exploding everywhere after a crash represents engineering working exactly as intended, converting kinetic energy into literal dust within 1/10 of a second, rather than transferring that energy to the driver. The survival cell stays intact, along with the roll structures, the fuel tank housed inside the monocoque, and the titanium halo device that became mandatory in 2018. The halo can resist 12 tons of force, which equals the weight of a London double-decker bus pressing down.
That is insanity. Just the technology that goes into making sure these drivers are safe at these ridiculous high speeds is truly impressive.
On a single point. What happens after the crash follows a specific protocol that begins the moment the wrecked car reaches the garage. Mechanics strip everything methodically, while photographing each component, and those images transmit straight to the factory design team for analysis. Matt Scott, the chief mechanic at Haas, describes the threshold clearly, explaining that anything experiencing 40 G has to go through rigorous inspection, because parts that look fine might carry internal damage that makes them dangerous to reuse. The next decision determines everything about the night ahead. Repair at the track becomes possible when the monocoque survives intact, but significant damage means pulling out the spare chassis that every team carries to every race. That spare arrives pre-fitted with the wiring loom, sensors and brake, and hydraulic pipework already installed, and that is when complications multiply. The fuel system sits inside the survival cell, which means a chassis change requires removing and reinstalling components in an extremely tight space over many hours. Rebuilding follows a specific sequence that Craig Scarborough from Motorsport Technology breaks down simply.
Reassembling 11,000 parts every second counts. Jeez.
Starting at the chassis, the front suspension goes on first, followed by the engine bolting into place. Rear suspension and gearbox assemble together as a unit before attaching to the back of the engine. Then the floor slides underneath, and bodywork goes on last. Around 11,000 components need to go back together in the right order so nothing gets blocked or buried by later additions. 8 to 12 hours covers a full overnight rebuild under normal circumstances.
An overnight rebuild is really, that's just insanity considering the type of damage that these vehicles take in these races sometimes. And for you to get your car or the vehicle rebuilt just like that within, overnight potentially, that's insane. Granted, it's a lot of people working on it because time is money, and they're trying to get everything back in working order and safe conditions so you can get back out there on the track. So, because these vehicles are very expensive, so losing one, you're gonna try if you're like I'm sure there's like multiple owners for each team and stuff like that. You're going to do what you can to make sure the vehicle can be salvaged instead of dropping millions of more dollars to potentially just get a brand new one. So
Mercedes proved the upper limits of speed at the 2022 Austrian Grand Prix when they rebuilt Lewis Hamilton's car in just 3.5 hours.
That's
and that
wild.
included the engine, gearbox, and complete suspension systems, front and rear.
In 3 hours.
60 operational staff per team represents the FIA limit at races, with 15 to 20 mechanics handling direct work on the cars. Curfew rules create 3 restricted periods each weekend where personnel must stay away from the track. But 6 exemptions per season give teams flexibility, and those exemptions frequently get used on crash rebuilds when a driver finds a wall at the wrong time. The mechanics themselves frame this pressure differently than outsiders might expect. Matt Scott describes it as exciting, comparing it to the driver going out for a qualifying lap where they push for the fastest time possible. Building the car under crisis conditions creates moments where the crew feels they can genuinely make a difference by pushing as hard as they can. Bahrain in 2020 showed what survival cells and halos can actually withstand. Romain Grosjean hit the barrier at 192 kilometers per hour at a 22-degree angle, generating peak forces of 67 G during an impact that split the car completely in two. The survival cells stayed intact through all of it, and the halo deflected the metal guardrail up and over his head while flames engulfed everything around him for 27 to 28 seconds. Grosjean had opposed the halo publicly back in 2017, arguing it had no place in F1. That crash reversed his position entirely, and he later called it the greatest thing the sport had ever introduced, adding,
Hey, look, it's crazy how your opinion can change when your life is on the line. Like, think about that. Your life is on the line, and because of that Halo device, it saved him. And then your perspective changed. Like, you know what? It's not that bad. You know what? I approve, because you're here to be able to approve. So
that without it, he would not be able to speak at all. The charred survival cell from that car now sits on display at the Formula One exhibition rather than being rebuilt. Zhou Guanyu's crash at Silverstone in 2022 demonstrated something even more alarming about the limits of safety equipment. His car flipped at around 160 miles per hour and slid upside down across the tarmac for several hundred meters before vaulting a tire barrier completely. The roll hoop, designed specifically to protect the driver's head in overturned situations, failed almost immediately and ripped clean off the car. Team principal Frederick Vasseur confirmed the impact force exceeded double what FIA crash tests require from that component. The halo carved 4 to 5 centimeters into the tarmac while protecting Joe's helmet for that entire upside-down slide. Nothing else stood between his head and the ground. Joe walked away and said simply that the halo saved him that day.
Yes.
$20.6 million covers the cost of a complete Formula One car, and the power unit alone accounts for over $18 million of that.
Did he say 20.6? Hold on. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly.
$20.6 million covers the cost of a complete Formula One car, and the power unit alone accounts for over $18 million of that.
And this is why they try to fix them as much as they possibly can, because that's $20 million for this. Just one. 20 million. Oh, yeah. Get to fixing that shit, y'all.
total. A single front wing with nose cone runs about $141,000. The floor adds another $141,000, and even the steering wheel costs $50,000 to replace. The cost cap changes everything about how teams approach crash damage because there is no general exemption for repairs. Budgeting for anticipated crashes at the start of each season became mandatory. And Andreas Seidel explained during his time at McLaren that teams simply have to account for certain crash damage per year before spending anything else. Smaller teams absorb these hits hardest, and Mick Schumacher's time at Haas illustrates the pressure perfectly. Gunther Steiner's book puts Schumacher's 2022 crash damage at $2 million total for the season.
Damn.
The Saudi Arabia incident alone cost between $500,000 and $1 million. Monaco added another $500,000 when the car split in two at the swimming pool section, and Japan contributed $700,000 more. The Japan crash stands out because of when it happened. Steiner's reaction became legendary when he pointed out it occurred on the in-lap, noting that conditions were wet, but nobody else managed to write off a car while driving back to the pits. Schumacher lost his seat the following year. Williams in 2024 absorbed damage that dwarfed every other team on the grid. Nearly €14 million in total crash costs accumulated across the season, more than double the second highest team. Franco Colapinto alone accounted for over €5 million of damage across just 9 races. Alex Albon added nearly $5 million more, and Logan Sargent contributed $3.8 million before the team fired him mid-season.
Damn.
Brazil Grand Prix weekend alone cost Williams somewhere between $2.5 million and $4 million when they lost 5 front wings, 5 floors, 5 rear wings, 3 gearboxes.
Jesus, bro. Hey, this is why if you plan on owning a F1 team, you gotta have some money to play. You gotta have a lot of money to play. Your investors gotta have some money to play because this is insane. But that's the reality of the situation. There's gonna be an accident. You're gonna take some damage. You're not gonna have a flawless season with no damage to the car. No, something's going to happen. You just got to account for it. But damn, that shit's expensive.
2 engines and 2 complete chassis. Team principal James Vowles requested a cost cap exemption from the FIA, and the governing body denied it. $1.8 million is what Max Verstappen's Silverstone crash cost Red Bull in 2021, and Christian Horner summed up the new reality by saying that an accident like that carries massive ramifications in a budget cap era. Carlos Sainz calls the mechanics the true heroes of the sport, and Zandvoort in 2021 showed exactly what he meant. An FP3 crash left his car destroyed with only minutes remaining before qualifying began, and Ferrari mechanics rebuilt everything in time for him to take the grid.
That's
Sainz
crazy,
described
bro.
it as one of the most impressive things he had
insane.
ever witnessed as a racing driver, calling the pressure of not knowing if he would make it out one of the most challenging moments of his life. 6th place in qualifying came from that rebuilt car, just 1/100th of a second behind his teammate. $20 million of precision engineering rebuilt in
$20 million, the car value, and rebuilt in 8 hours is just mind-boggling, just impressive, just really impressive. Like, holy. I hope these mechanics, these technicians, everyone involved, getting paid some good money. They need to be getting paid some good money because you're staying up all night or however long to get this car back out because, once again, these teams are not trying to buy a brand new vehicle unless it's completely cooked and you can't salvage it. No. They want to see if they can get this fixed because paying a couple $1 million in or, however much it is, depending on the damage and getting your car rebuilt, getting the vehicle rebuilt and trying to buy a whole nother one, $20 million worth, you're going to do whatever you can to salvage it.
8 hours under curfew pressure defines this job, with every mistake carrying the potential to cost the driver a race or the team a championship. And that cycle repeats every time someone finds a wall at 200 miles per hour.
This was actually pretty cool, bro. I'm not going to lie to you. This was a very cool video. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a like. This is on the channel Grid Scope and Slipstream Stories. This is actually really, really dope. Go show them some love. I mean, I never knew how fast they were really building up these cars, rebuilding them. This is truly, truly, truly impressive, man. But hey, comment down below. Let me know some other car related videos y'all want me to check out. I definitely will. I appreciate all the love and support you guys are showing on the channel. Road to 30K. I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.